Hey, ladies, welcome to the Calm Edge podcast. I'm your host, Brooke. Does it feel like your brain is on overdrive? Maybe you're struggling with spiraling thoughts and feeling like you can't relax. Well, hey, I have a solution for you. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I help women just like you every single day reprogram their minds to master overthinking and eliminate self-doubt so you can feel calm, confident, and elevated. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Jenna Laski Scott, a renowned psychotherapist and the founder of the practice Becoming Epic. She brings over 20 years of experience in emotional development and clinical psychotherapy with advanced training in attachment-focused EMDR, mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy, and somatic work. Jenna is also a developmental expert who teaches emotional intelligence across all ages. Jenna, I cannot wait to dive into this today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's such a treat to be here. I'm excited.
So, why don't we start with just sharing a little bit about who you are and how you found your way into the field of psychotherapy?
Great. So I was sort of like a thinker and observer ever since I was a kid. And I was observing sort of what did and didn't happen for people. And I would think about how or why it could be different. And so when I finished high school, I grew up on the East Coast in New Jersey. Going into college, it was sort of like psychology was like the thing that sort of seemed most right at that time. And I loved it. And then I started working sort of in the field of early development with children that were sort of identified with autism or on the spectrum of autism. So I did a lot of work in schools, but I also did a lot of stuff at home with children and parents. Moved out to California in 2000. And it wasn't until my daughter, who is now almost 22, was 2 years old that I went back to graduate school.
Amazing.
Felt this deep calling to have more of an impact and more of a doorway into the work, because with just an undergraduate you can't really do much. You had to
Yeah,
go to
yeah.
school. So I did that, and then it sort of just continued to unfold in a really natural, organic way. When I look back at all of it, it's quite astonishing, between doing parenting groups for a number of years, working with schools, working in a private practice, being a supervisor. And it's just the work I feel very honored doing. I find it very sacred work, both
Yeah.
personally, but also professionally. Um, and it's something that I feel is deeply nourishing because it's always available to understand in more, like either more depth or more dimension or more presence, because we're changing, right? Who I am today is not who I was when I was 30, and yet I am. Like, it's both. And so I get to sort of expand with myself, but also with my clients.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about the clients you work with. A lot of parents, schools, right?
Yeah,
And
so I
educators.
do I do a lot of work with like teachers and educators, both at sort of the early preschool stage, but also the primary elementary school age, to help them understand just development, how kids are very different. Like a 5-year-old is different than a 3-year-old versus a 9-year-old versus an 11-year-old. Um, I love that work. I will love working with professionals and really helping them expand their own connection, their own tools, their own understanding. I do work with parents. I do a lot of parent consults. What I've noticed though is like my primary private practice is that not everyone's coming for parenting, but yet we sort of talk about that because whether we're a parent or not, we all were a child and we all have
Mhm.
parents. And so there's just this theme of attachment, relationship development that's sort of ongoing, no matter who I'm working with, no matter what age. And I do work with kids, I work with teens, I sort of work with the gamut of age. And if I had to put myself into under an umbrella, I would say that I specialize in relationships and tend to be a little bit more anxious prone, a little bit more
Mhm.
of the, you could see a perfectionistic or an overachiever or just sort of a worry type of thing, panic, OCD.
So it's really interesting because I think what we're going to be talking about today is emotional literacy and that nervous system work. But
Yeah.
why do you think most of us weren't really taught that? Like, I know that there's a big missing piece. Like, I got
Yeah.
into this work because
Yes.
I didn't feel like I was taught how to emotionally regulate. I learned later on through mindfulness practices, through hypnotherapy, through these other tools. Why do you think that is missing from
Oh,
how most of us were raised?
I love this question. Okay, so it's going to be a deep dive as I answer. And it's
Great. We've got plenty of time. This
okay,
is
good. Good. So I believe that our collective consciousness is raising. I
Mm,
believe that there has always been a desire, yet because the inherent change of what emotions are, it's very nuanced. And so, therefore, a system that's linear did not apply to emotions. We're not linear.
mm,
So, if you think about how we learn letters, right, and how we learn to read, you don't read better because you're 13 or 12, I mean, or 22 or 42, right? Like age does not allow someone to read better. The
yeah.
practice of reading, right? Learning
Yeah.
the basics, the alphabet, the sounds, how we put things together. Same thing with numbers, right?
Yeah.
Someone's not going to learn calculus if they don't know how to add, but they don't know how to add unless they understand numbers.
Yeah.
And so we have been taught very important information, and yet in a way that's very linear, how there's steps. And that's not how emotions are. Emotions, my jealousy today is very different than what it was when I was 8, and yet it will still be jealousy.
Mm,
And so if you think about if a letter changed every time we got to a different age and stage, it would be really difficult to understand how to read.
mm,
Like if
yeah.
like think like why emotions are so hard is because they're not always the same and we're evolving and changing.
Mm,
So even though I'm almost 50, I still read the same way as I did when I was 13. Now I read different things, but the letters and the numbers are still the same. So I'm not having to do a lot of like extra mental, be present, figure. It's just I get to read.
yeah.
So I think the way in which we've learned certain very valuable knowledge is very different than emotional intelligence. So that's
Mm,
just one thing to understand. I think the second thing is, and this is where we could potentially really vibe in this idea, I think that one of the number one blocks for all of us is the deep, deep subconscious belief about emotions that we shouldn't feel. And because of that, fear and negative stories get put onto us and our emotions that are sort of natural and normal. Now, why that's so problematic is because inevitably during adolescence, when we have identity formation, right? So a child, they're just sort of in their home, right? They do things because mommy and daddy and they're connected and that attachments, all that's there. Adolescence is really unique because they're starting to come into who am I?
mm,
And what happens, and when I work with teens, is they get flooded with emotions, understandable, and they don't know how to use language to separate out I feel versus I am.
mm,
Collapse down. And part of the reason they collapse down is because they believe they shouldn't be feeling this way.
mm,
Things should be happening this way. They overcompensate to regulate disappointment or uncertainty through this word because that's what were taught directly and indirectly in their homes.
mm. The difference between I am and I feel.
Yeah.
So this is who I
Radical.
am. And then also a feeling of like, this feeling is never going to go away. Like this could
Correct.
be forever. It's actually interesting.
Correct.
I know that you worked a bit with Dan Siegel from
Yeah.
UCLA, and I just happened to finish The Whole Brain Child because I have
Uh-huh.
15-month
Yes.
old. I
Yeah.
also laugh because I'm like, this is so interesting. This is the work that I do with a lot
Uh-huh.
of my clients. And now I'm
Correct.
just, but he talks about the I am versus I feel. And it's like that overgeneralization that we
Correct. You
learn as
collapse
to,
your identity into a feeling of the present.
mm,
And why that's so common for adolescents is because they don't have their identity yet.
yeah,
And so when we have a home that is not able to hold their own emotions, i.e., parents, and I put myself in this category, my son is 13, my daughter's 21, so this is big.
mhm,
And so the ability to hold their emotions is only as stable as I can hold my own.
mm,
And I believe that we have been taught really ineffective strategies. One specifically of control. Control your emotions is backwards, it's BS. We don't control, we connect.
mm,
And control is rooted in fear. And when
mm,
people talk about that they don't want to judge their emotions, they have to understand what is judgment? Judgment is a binary belief of how it should be.
mm.
Even if we're not saying this out loud, the higher our intensity, and it's one of the things that we talk about in the becoming epic practice, is the higher our intensity, the more indication it might be that there is a subconscious thinking trap, which is a limiting belief. And it's
Hmm.
meant to come up. Our emotions are powerful. They're signals to bring things up that no longer serve us.
Hmm. So I'm going to repeat something you said that is really powerful. We don't control, we connect.
Yes.
So
Yep.
simple. And
And
just the
so,
act of connecting, recognizing the emotion and it's here and allowing that to be here, right?
yes,
Versus trying to push it away or say, this is bad. The belief is the meaning that you've attached to the emotion, essentially, which
yes,
is most of us attach like a negative meaning. This is bad. I
correct.
shouldn't feel this.
Correct, because of the word should, right? And because when
Hmm.
we were young children, the ability for the environment to hold space for an emotion wasn't really there because oftentimes adults don't really understand or really value, respect a child being upset because their blocks just fell.
Mm.
They think it's no big deal, just build them again, right? So we often get skipped over.
Yeah.
It's how the that part of us that carries around that wound of not being seen and heard. But now as full adults, we have to understand our own practice to see and hear ourselves within. Many of us are much more codependent, seeking other or outcome to feel the way we want to feel. That's a collapse in identity, as if we're
Yeah.
still eight.
Yes. So looking externally for that validation, I need you to reflect back to me that you're witnessing how I feel versus an internal, it is safe to feel this way, to work through it, to connect with it. But
Correct.
we are going to get into what exactly is the epic practice. But before we do that, because you already mentioned the word should, let's talk about why is should language so disconnecting and what's a healthier alternative?
Yeah. So the word should sounds benign, and I understand the intention behind it, right? The idea is to allow us to have reminders of what principles or values and choices there are, right? So I understand in, the intention behind the word. However, it's used so insidiously, and it is the root of judgment. Because what it says is there's only one way how it should be or how it shouldn't be. All of us carry around, whether we want to call it the ego or the inner child or whatever it is, ways in which the body responds in good, bad, right, wrong, and it creates inflammation. And so I've worked with doctors as well to help them understand it's not to recommend that their patients should be sleeping 8 hours. Let's talk about getting more sleep. So it's
Mm,
not about moving away from giving direction or support or information. It's without this word should, because most of us carry around a child that inside that feels stupid, feels
mhm.
incapable.
Shame.
That and shame is rooted all into good, bad, right, or wrong.
Yeah. And you can't shame yourself into change.
Correct. Shame does not lead to wisdom.
Mm,
Insight does. We've not been taught how to have insight because the word should comes in. And we are using this word to ourselves and the people that we love. One of the biggest things I see is like our world is at war, but I see the war in homes.
mm,
And it is painful because no one is trying to war with each other. It's they just revert back when something's upsetting into old systems and old ways of thinking that break connection first with themselves and then with each other.
yeah.
And really at the root, you hear it. When we begin to tune in, it's like a radio station, right? Like when we begin to tune in, it you almost hear it. And my field, which I love, when you look at books, information is giving through this should, and it
Mm,
emboldens people to be angry at their children or their partner because you should be doing this. I told you once, you should have listened.
mm,
Oh, and what's happening in that moment is the person is not sitting with the pain of not having what it is that they deeply want. We
mm,
want what we want, and I'm highly specific. So I want what I want, and I don't need it. And this is a big one. I don't need it, but I want it. And so I will have moments of deep devastation and disappointment because I don't get what I want.
yeah.
And so, do I know how to hold space for that without collapsing into my shame? I shouldn't want this, or blame, they shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And this word really leads to so much inflammation in someone's body about
Mm,
themselves, so much internal shame and judgment. And we know it because we can get to understanding sort of the degree of our emotions. It's kind of giving us a a reminder like, hey, there's something here that's not your full truth. It's not your full truth that you should be better. You want to be better. Let's
Yeah.
figure out what that means for you.
Yeah. Wow. It makes me think of something you said earlier about inflammation in the body, how the emotions impact your physical body. This is a huge missing piece in our medical system right now. And it's really, um, it's just it's really hard to watch people go through illness and not see how emotion comes into play. That really it comes down to, are you connecting with those emotions?
Correct. Correct. And it's really effing hard to connect. I mean, I like, oh. So
Yeah.
here's a couple quick things. I think we believe that sometimes if we do enough on the outside that we won't feel and therefore we shouldn't feel. So when we do, we're shaming, right? There's
Mm,
all these like little small little splinters that happen. What often happens because of the word should around our own emotional sort of landscape, we are not in a place of curiosity, which then blocks the ability to have compassion. So everyone tells each other to be compassionate. Well, compassion is built on not judgment, curiosity. What
mm.
blocks curiosity is this notion how it should be or shouldn't be.
Ah, yes. So
Yeah,
self-compassion, I've always felt self-compassion is the key to
correct.
everything, but
Yes,
underneath that is should.
correct. Because what we have is connection and compassion are the opposite of control and criticism.
Mm,
The bridge here is the curiosity. Curiosity has to come in so that we're not collapsing in this idea that I'm wrong or bad or they're
yeah.
wrong and bad. Now that doesn't mean I like it. Does not mean I like it. And so when we understand that all emotions are powerful and that there's ways in which there's information, deep wisdom to understand, it calls us to begin to connect within. And this can be, I reference it often, like it's an emotional cold plunge. It's like,
Mm,
I don't want to sit with my envy. That's really icky. I don't want to sit with my deep righteousness at someone. And yet I call myself my Jersey Jenna. My Jersey Jenna can get very judgmental and righteous. Now, that's not who I am, right?
mm,
I'm not that person, but I can feel judgmental. I can feel righteous. Okay, so what is this? That's not who I am. What is this? What's coming up for me? And
yeah.
often, personally, and I see over and over and over again with clients, is that it really just comes back to grief.
Yeah.
Things matter. We get blown up. We're going to be flooded, triggered, activated, dysregulated, whatever word we want to use, because
Yeah.
things matter to us and we are deeply disappointed. We
Mm,
don't have the space to hold our own pain. We go into controlling the outside or the other because that's what we've been told as a society. Pick up
mm,
any book. People talk about over and over again to teach children to control their emotions. It makes me break out in a cold sweat.
mm.
Like,
Yeah.
no,
Because even the basis of that they need to be fixed
correct.
is, yeah.
Yes. It's an intention to help, and yet it begins to have more of an impact of disconnection.
Yeah.
And I believe if we raise our consciousness with our words and understand really what is this?
Yeah, the power of words. It's funny, one of my favorite practices is inner child work. I think, for myself, I really, that was like a huge turning point for me. I mean, it's something that I use a lot with my clients. And now that I have a child, it's like a whole new level of inner child work, right? Because now I'm talking to him. And you talked about good or bad, this idea of being, am I good? Right. And I think this is like a root cause of a lot of dysfunction. And I think a lot of us are told, be a good girl, be a good boy, right? And as simple as I try and I hear myself wanting to say it
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
I stop myself, I would say I'm about 70% effective at stopping
Yeah,
myself
that's
from being like,
great.
good boy, good job. Like, I don't want my son to grow up with this idea that if I perform, I'm good, I'm a good boy. If I perform for mom and dad in a certain way, that language, good boy, and this like, good girl syndrome,
Mhm.
right? So, this idea that you have to be good in order to be loved. And so I love that tool of like rewiring that talk of you don't have to be good, you just have to be you.
Correct.
And your goodness is the most innate thing about you.
That's right. And and the thing is our goodness is right alongside our badness because we are whole,
Yeah.
right? And so when the more I can love my Jersey Jenna,
Yeah.
I don't live in Jersey, Jenna, right? But I visit. And when I
Yeah.
understand why Jersey Jenna is blowing up, I I have more of myself because Jersey Jenna is really rooted in things that matter to her.
Yeah.
And I think when we understand these parts of ourselves, right, the part that will be um, distracted, will be overwhelmed without the judgment as if it shouldn't be there.
Mm.
Sometimes it allows us to call ourselves into being more accountable, right? Like when we have this insight, not shame. And I think if we can evolve out of like, I'm not a big fan of guilt. I
Mm.
don't believe guilt is rooted in in shoulds, how it should be. I feel guilty
Yeah.
because I should have been doing this. I believe insight. It's like, wait, is that really how I want to be? And when we ask
Yeah.
that question, it calls us into a lot of accountability and to really not collapse into, well, someone made me feel this way. Nah, nah, nah. You're responsible for your feelings. I am feeling this way. Yeah, I definitely feel that way. But
Hmm.
there's language that we use that really sort of kind of gaslight ourselves.
Yeah. Also, just a quick side note, I just had a chuckle. This is totally a therapeutic conversation for me because your Jersey Jenna just made me think I have my Baltimore Brookside. And
Yes.
I never named her before until now.
Uh-huh.
I've got Baltimore Brook. Yeah.
There you go. That's
She's
right. Yeah. And
so,
I love this part of my Jersey Jenna who is so fierce and like, do you know what the ACE
yes.
test is, the ACE score?
Yeah.
So I was in college and the first time I ever took that test and I got an 8 and it's out of 10. It's the one test you don't want a high score for. And my college professor asked me to stay back and was very concerned. And he's like, you know that you're an 8. I was like, yeah, I lived it. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I know. And so the reason I say that is because there's a way in which Jersey Jenna became Jersey Jenna for all of those things that I want.
Yeah.
And there's parts of her that are just deeply fearful and alone and overwhelmed and yet just kept trying. And I love that about her. It just doesn't serve me in the same way anymore. Like I'm
Yeah.
blessed that I was that way.
Yeah.
And I think that the more we can understand, that's why I love Dan Siegel's work and attachment, the more we can understand what did and did not happen for us, not without shame and blame to those that were around us. But, and that's what Dan Siegel talks about with his attachment work and sort of bringing it in from, Bowlby and Ainsworth, this idea of a coherent narrative. Many of us live sort like just checked out of what did and didn't happen. And so we don't have insight. We're not leading with wisdom. We lead with
Yeah.
shame and blame and control and criticism because we're not pausing to understand, wait, what was that?
Yeah.
With curiosity versus the judgment.
Yeah.
And when we have the ability to make meaning of ourselves from a place of curiosity and compassion, it allows for more expansion in the central nervous system to register.
Mm.
So I experienced a lot of physical, financial, emotional threat and lack of safety. There was a lot of disorganization in my home. And so my body carries a very strong, I have a startle reflex. I have a lot of quick feeling. I can disassociate, I can shut down.
Mm.
And the reason I got into Dan Siegel's work was because I wanted to be a different parent. And I also knew what I was carrying. And I wanted to know that I wasn't sentenced to just being sort of broken. So
Mm.
that's how I was feeling in the moment. It's like, oh, I'm not broken. My body was responding to the environment the best way it knew. How can I let it know that I am safe now? I am
Mm.
not my 8-year-old self. I'm not my 12-year-old self. I'm not my 15-year-old self. I'm fully autonomous and in authority of myself as an adult.
Mm.
How can I begin to create a feeling in my body that's different?
Yeah.
A lot of that grounding. I mean, I started meditating in 2000, was a very mixed relationship at the time, but really beginning to learn practices to help slow down to connect in the body.
Yeah. Well, and also just the personification of Jersey Jenna, personifying her and holding space for her and loving her and even a little lightness about her, that it takes away some of that heaviness. I am not her. She's one part of me who sometimes comes forward in response, but now I can talk and work with her and I separate myself from her almost. I'm connected and also I can look at her and watch her and talk to her, right?
Yes.
That's where hypnosis comes in. The imagery of having the conversation with Jersey Jenna or child version of Jenna is a way of relating to that part of you, which is, I think, interesting too. Wow. So you've been in this field for over 20 years. Was there a moment in your work that led you to create the Becoming Epic framework?
Yeah, it was actually my work. So in 2020, when the world was shutting down, I was completing a 20-year marriage.
Mm,
And there was, I'm, I value every year I was in that marriage. My greatest gifts are my children. Um, and yet I had to really understand that there was a way in which I was not living in alignment with the type of love that I wanted. And so as I sort of began to move forward in a very different way than I thought my life would look, I was working with a couple, um, and I heard myself say, because I grew up saying epic and dude and like gnarly. Like I was not like a surfer kid, but like I was at the beach, and that
yeah.
was sort of
It
what
was
was,
in your soul.
yeah, it was like what the vernacular was, the epic. And so I had said to this couple as I was working with them, as an epic couple, we are becoming emotionally powerful, internally connected. And I was on Zoom because it was 2020 COVID. And I literally put my hand up and I was like, wait, 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 stop. And I wrote it down because it just felt like it came in because I use that word all the time. I talked about how I wanted epic love. And that was where I felt so shattered and broken for a lot of years, because I knew I wanted something that I couldn't quite do all on my own. And
Mm,
when I heard myself say that in the work with this couple who was working in the work, it was like there it was. And it was just my mantra. So I just said it to myself. So when I would feel my own dysregulation, it was like, okay, remember, I am epic. I'm emotionally powerful, internally connected, and just became this mantra at first
mm,
in early 2020. And then it began to be like, okay, so internally connected. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not externally connected. I'm internally connected. What does that mean? Then the questions came and then the steps came and it began to unfold. And at first, really, the first 2 years, it was just my own personal sort of like thing. Um, and then I began to use it with my clients like actively,
mm,
in 2022. And I started talking about it and it's sort of seeing what they would respond. And then I had associates and I started sharing it with them. And then I wrote about it. And then it was like, okay, we're like fully into this. Like 2023, it was like, it just really began to come forward. And so in 2024, I began to say, like, I want to talk about this because it felt to me that it gave structure to something that didn't have structure. It felt like it addressed some of those things that I personally began to feel when, even despite all my training and all my knowledge, that I would feel in the moment of my own heat. And it gave me
mm,
something. And so I started working on what does this mean to go beyond the walls of my office? Like I was felt called beyond. And I had everything ready to release in 2025, and then the fires happened. And I'm
mm,
a resident of the Palisades, and we're coming up on a year of that. And I paused and I've kind of had this feeling of just like, just drop it. Like it was like I felt completely shattered. And I just felt like I just felt like completely detached from it in the sense of launching it. But personally, I remember January 19th, I just kept using the practice even more. And so
mm,
professionally, I stopped. But personally, I just like it was even just so much more apparent in my own process of what Epic was for me. Because in 2024, I was so focused on like, how do I get out there and did my brand thing and like all that stuff. And I was so focused on trying to get it out that
yeah.
early in my own recovery and stabilization, right after the fires, I just did it for myself. I just was back in my own process as if I was 5 years ago and just holding myself and comforting myself and reminding how emotionally powerful I am and how internally connected I am and going through it over and over and over again. And then it was right around February that I was like, I believe in it even more. Like
Yeah.
it almost felt like I can't sit on this. Like I believe in it so much. So then I went and I started to share, and have
Mm.
been sharing more of the actual practice.
Oh, that's beautiful. First of all, I just want to take a minute and hold that, what
Mm.
this past year has meant for you
Yeah.
and how it's even just brought you to this moment and so much more emotionally powerful and internally connected, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you walk us through how someone might use that in a moment of reactivity? So, what is this process and this practice look like? How does it apply in other situations and
So
ways?
there's so there's two components to it. Emotionally powerful is really around what are we doing in the moment when we get activated. And so I'll come back to that in a moment. The internally connected, and that's three steps. Emotionally powerful is three steps. Internally connected is three questions. Both of these coming together really help at times dismantle deep codependent sort of patterns as well as the shame and blame. It really tries to bring us back into sort of consciousness, into connection. And so when I first start working with this with myself and or other clients, I really allow us to first go into the internally connected because most of our emotions collapse into our identity. And so if we're not really feeling secure in who we are, it makes sense, right? Like an 8-year-old doesn't know who they are. What do they do? Now they're not codependent, they're just dependent. So an 8-year-old child will look to the other, i.e., parent, teacher, coach, or outcome, test score. Did they make a score, right? Like, did they get a goal? Like, they will look at outcome to then know their identity.
Yeah.
And so when we become adults, we have to become really conscious. So interesting. I, it's always interesting why we kind of dog on this idea of being self-conscious as if that's wrong or negative, because being conscious is helpful. We put the word self in
Right.
front of it. Why is that negative? But that's a separate.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when
It's
we try to
interesting.
become more conscious and understand how internally connected we are, despite any feeling, we no longer need, and that's the key word. I don't need the outcome or the other to be what I want. I want what that, but I don't need. And that's the
Right.
separation because my need is within and I get to discern what really works for me. And going through these three questions, core values, who am I? Understanding what that is. How do I want to feel at this age and stage? And then how do I want to show up in these relationships? Because when
Mm.
I begin to lead and direct myself, I'm more connected, not controlling, connected to who I am right now. I change in age and stage based upon what is and is not going on. And so many of us are waiting to have the desired emotional experience versus knowing how to cultivate for ourselves. So this idea of how do I want to feel at this age and stage, I kind of do my own inventory every season. And what was so interesting is over the summer, I wanted to feel more spontaneous. My daughter's very spontaneous and she's very fun oriented and powerful. And so I was like, I really want to work on being spontaneous. I love my schedule. And I was like, I want to work this season in summer being more spontaneous. And what was so interesting, despite that sounds like a really wonderful emotion that we'd like to feel, is the moment I took a spontaneous drive, there was two situations. I took a spontaneous drive on a Sunday, and then I went to a spontaneous lunch. And both of those situations, when I was trying to cultivate this feeling, I got swapped with feeling impulsive, reckless, and wasteful.
Ah.
Mm-hmm. Because there's limiting beliefs. There was a reason why my body likes the structure, right? That has safety. And so, but if I'm not looking to cultivate these other emotions and these experiences that I say I want, like being spontaneous, I like that in theory. Here I go trying to do that. Part of my body is responding, that's impulsive, don't do that.
Mm.
So I had to really regulate, which comes over to the emotionally powerful. So when
Mm.
I felt impulsive, that's not wrong or bad. It's not like I shouldn't feel, but I didn't want to feel because I remember I told myself I wanted to feel spontaneous. So I had insight here. I was able to name and understand what was coming up for me to begin to kind of hear and reparent, which is what we're doing so much of, and hold space with that part of me that doesn't know how to be unstructured and safe. So
Yeah.
spontaneous does not necessarily always feel good in my body, and yet I want it to. So the three questions really help us get rooted into the internally connected that begins to put us into who we are. When an emotion comes up that we're not desiring to feel, it's not wrong or bad, it's just that, I don't really desire to feel impulsive. That's not how I want to feel. So when I feel that, the first step is you have to name it to know it. Dan Siegel says, name it to tame it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That helps the amygdala begin to calm down because we're in the prefrontal cortex, all that kind of stuff. So we name to know, rate to regulate, claim to create.
Mm.
And so when I was feeling impulsive in that moment on a Sunday, we can't regulate what we don't know. So the reason it's so important to become much more emotionally literate, meaning more nuanced, because feeling discouraged is very different than feeling disorganized. Feeling jealous is very different than feeling hopeless. Most people say they feel stressed, but when they sit with that, feeling stressed could be unsafe or
Right.
overwhelmed. And so we won't know what to sort of help ourselves with if we don't have more specificity. And as
Yeah.
adults, this is where we get to level up our emotional intelligence,
Mm.
not just saying we feel bad. What does that
Right.
mean? Right? Like it's really a lot of investigation. That's this insight. And why the word should shuts us down is because so many of us are like, we don't have a prefrontal cortex to understand these emotions because we have a lot of negative beliefs about them
Yeah.
because we shouldn't feel this way. So when we take out the should and lead with curiosity, we begin to understand more of our emotions. We name it to know it. Then we get into rate to regulate. There's three parts to this. Frequency, how often? This is big for children, depending upon a certain age and stage. A 15-year-old, if you came to me and said, Jenna, my son is really having a lot of big emotions. He's melting down a lot. I'm like, okay, how old is he? 15 months. Okay, so how many times a day would you say that's happening? If it's not happening 3 times a day, I'm like, wait, do you have a 15-year-old, right? A 15-month-old, right? Like if it's happening a dozen times, I'm like, okay, that is a lot, but yet that's still within age and range of,
That
understand.
makes me feel a lot better, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. Like if we understand an age and
Right.
stage, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, this is within range, right? This makes
Right.
sense. They're still developing so much. So
Yeah.
their frequency of being upset is going to be higher,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't mean we like it, but it's going to be higher. So we don't want to make meaning of it without context. So
Yeah.
frequency and duration, those are two big things that we do like to see come down. So we don't want a child tantruming for 45 minutes. That's a long duration. But I would much rather have a dozen tantrums in a day that are less than 10 minutes than one that's an hour,
Yeah.
right? That's just different. And so there's ways in which we understand what's going on. Frequency, duration are big things that we look to reduce. Intensity. Intensity is not necessarily like good or bad or what we want to have only low intensity. When we have high intense emotions, it gives us an insight into what else is coming up. Is this making sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. So
Wonderful. We're
intensity,
with you.
great. Intensity is on a scale of 1 to 10. And I think that not only are we trying to figure out how do we feel, and let's just take, I want to make this really tangible. Let's take, I often feel like one of the emotions is I feel overwhelmed. And so I have to, overwhelmed becomes my catch-all. So, okay, so do I feel overwhelmed and scattered? Do I feel overwhelmed and fatigued? And so I have to help break that down. So let's just say I'm feeling more scattered, right? I have lots of things going on. I'm feeling really scattered. When I check in, and if I understand that feeling scattered at an 8 is very different than feeling scattered at a 4,
Mm.
we begin to understand more information about our bodies. It's not that I'm just scattered or not scattered,
Right.
just like
Yeah.
thirst.
You're peeling away the layers, the root underneath of it, and
Because,
getting to know that, right? You're getting to
yes,
know yourself. You're just kind of learning more about these feelings in the body. That interoceptive awareness, is that the
yes,
word? Yeah.
that's right. Yes, yes.
I feel something very specific.
And when people first have to kind of quantify the intensity that they feel, it's really, sometimes people don't like it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when they identify that they're at a 7 and then we start to try to kind of connect with that. Sometimes they blow up, they go even higher,
Yeah.
because
Because
it's
they're in their body, and that can be really scary when you've spent your whole life
not
disconnected from your body.
correct.
Yeah.
There
Somatic part of it.
and
Yeah.
and just the act of putting a number to it does bring us back into the prefrontal cortex. So it begins to give some regulation, even if it's not conscious yet, into the body's ability to make sense and meaning with themselves. And understanding that just like our thirst, like if you had water an hour ago, you might be thirsty right now, but you're not dehydrated. And
Right.
so context is important for us to begin to understand around our own emotions, because in of itself, feeling scattered at a 4 is very, very different in my body. It's just like a little like, oh, I'm feeling scattered. And then I know how to hydrate my heart, kind of come in. I believe our emotions, the ones that we don't desire, are reminders to call us back.
Mm.
And so when I'm really connected to myself and understanding, oh, wow, that scattered feeling can come up. And I feel myself so quickly. I'm staying in connection,
Yeah.
me, right? And if no one
And
else,
it doesn't get as loud when you
Correct.
listen.
Correct. Now, when it does get loud, there's some real beauty in here. Anything higher than a 5 often indicates historic limbic system. Limbic system has no sense of time. Time is something that we make up.
Mm,
So limbic system is remembering all the past little incidences. Yo, 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 no, no, no. All of that's coming up. It's like, yo, it's like giving me alarm. No, it's freeze. And so limbic is most likely historic going on, as well as thinking traps, right? Cognitive distortions. Our words matter. And so we often are collapsing down. And that's why I hear myself often collapsing into my emotional experience when I'm like pretty heated. So if I'm feeling really scattered and I'm at an 8, I begin to have my identity as if I am. I'm so scattered. And I just the other day trying to get all the things for holiday parties and all this kind of stuff. I'm so scattered. I was like, whoa, 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 Jenna, baby girl, come on. I'm feeling really scattered. Of course, it makes sense. You have so much going on,
mm,
right? And so my words remind me of the lies that I have been told.
mm.
I was not a selfish kid. I was not a crazy kid. I was not a bad kid. I was not hysterical. I wasn't difficult. I wasn't any of those labels, just like you weren't. No one. And yet, my identity, it collapses into my feelings because I was labeled certain things when I was having feelings as a child. And it was really
Mm,
scary. And I get to kind of reparent myself over and over and over and over again
yeah.
in those moments. And so the numbers are really big. That's when a lot of tools of acknowledgement. A lot of times people just have a very difficult time acknowledging themselves
Oh
because
yeah,
huge.
feels very, I mean, that's a big piece, I think, of what I do is helping people talk to themselves. A lot of my clients, I'm
Uh-huh.
just like, okay, so humor me. I'm going to have you talking to yourself
Yes.
nicely.
Yep.
And at first it's like this feels really weird. And it's just repetition and having those conversations in the third person with yourself. You're rewiring a new conversation with yourself until the new language becomes the default mode. And then that turns into a belief system, right? A new
Yes.
belief.
A new belief. And I believe that when we have, like when I was, feeling scattered, but told myself I am scattered, the belief is this is too
Mhm.
much, you can't handle it. And so
Yeah.
when the last step in this, a bit, when we're emotionally powerful, is to really truly claim, and this is where it can feel like an emotional cold plunge. How do you want to feel? So nothing changes on the outside. Circumstances are circumstances. So it's not like I have to have this done so then I can feel. No, 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 no. How do I want to feel right now, given everything going on in my life? I'm feeling really scattered. I was up at an 8. I brought myself down. How do I want to feel? And it was like calm and stable. It's like,
Mm.
okay, now I might only be at a 2 of feeling that, but it's bringing me
Hmm.
back in and helping me remind myself that I
Mm.
can feel this way despite the circumstances. I am
Ah,
not my emotions.
yeah,
Right. So if I'm stable, if I understand who I am and I can begin to call in this feeling, I can give myself that permission, the support, whatever it is, to begin to feel that alongside
yeah.
it.
There's something you did before that though, which is acknowledge the scattered feeling and say, of course you would feel that way.
Correct.
Ah, so you
Correct.
validated it first, you
Yep.
allowed it, and then started to shift into what do I want to feel?
Correct.
And I think that's like the piece that a lot of us miss
Yes, we don't
because
write
that we didn't get that as children, right?
because parents have, and understandably, our identity. I mean, there's so much I could keep saying about this. What happens with us
It's
as
a lifetime of therapy I think we've just gotten in the last 45 minutes. It's incredible. I love it.
why I feel for us as parents, right? That our identity as being a good mother
Hmm.
collapses when our child is upset. Our own central nervous system goes into fight or flight when, like, literally our child is crying. You can feel it. If you're nursing, your milk lets down. I mean, our bodies are meant to be co-regulating. But if our belief is that if our child is not happy, somehow we've done something wrong or bad, that they should
Yeah.
always be happy, whew, it's going to be really difficult to live
Ah.
and give space to that child.
Mm.
And so most people, I'll give an example. Most people have a hard time acknowledging themselves because that's when the should comes in and the shame comes in, right around the emotion of feeling scattered, that they shouldn't be, or they begin to blame their partner that their partner should be doing this. And so that's when the disconnect happens. And
Hmm.
what I also, I'm just going to put a plug in here, a lot of times why manifestation sometimes can feel inauthentic is because we can't just think our way through it. We do have to regulate, and which means we come close to connect with the emotions. As much as I love my words and my power, it is about coming in, which is that step to rate to regulate.
Yeah.
Just have to understand, what does that really mean for ourselves? And the other thing that I want to highlight here is that I have this woman that I've been working with for a period of time. She has 3 children, very dedicated as a good mother, and really identifies as that. However, led most of her decisions through the shoulds. And
Mm.
she said, she's like, Jenna, I feel like I've recovered. And I was like, tell me more. And she's like, because there was an event at one of her children's school, and she forgot to take something in, and she didn't collapse into the shame, right? It still mattered to her,
Yeah.
right? But what she was saying is that her shame, her sort of disappointment was not at a 9, as if she should remember. And if she
Mm.
didn't remember, she's not a good mom. Now she felt it. She was in a 2 or 3 or 4, right? So we will feel disappointed.
Yeah.
At a 2 or 3 or 4, our body's not blown up as if the whole world is stopping.
Yeah.
And that's why the numbers can be helpful. So
So important because you're able to recognize the wins and
yes,
the more you're able to recognize those, the more motivated and better you feel moving forward. And the better it gets, the better it gets. Right? It's like,
yes,
yeah. So focusing on that progress. And when you're not rating it, you're just like, oh, I feel disappointed. I failed. Right? There's that
exactly.
generalization. And it
Yes,
immediately drops back to the old identity of like,
yes,
yeah, and the old beliefs. Yeah, versus recognizing this is part of who I am now and I'm moving forward because it's a 2 and not an 8. Yeah,
yes, yes.
beautiful. Beautiful. Ah, a lot of golden nuggets in here. I think everybody listening probably is going to listen to this episode more than once because this was very therapeutic and a lot of really good information. And okay, so before we kind of wrap it up here, what is next for becoming epic? Like, what do you see on the horizon?
Well, it's a good question. I love working with parents. I have done parenting groups for so many years, and I think it's really valuable. However, and so I've been doing becoming epic parent for parents. And so what I believe is most important, even though it is, I can give scripts until I'm blue in the face. I love giving scripts, right? And I think Dr. Becky Kennedy, who is Good Inside, she's such a phenomenal sort of just beacon of light and direction for us as parents. What I think is really important, and what I like as becoming epic is for parents, is that it's not just about getting our kid to be doing something, that we really focus in our parenting groups about how do we lead? How are we showing up?
Yeah.
And these words and the notion or the sound bites sound great, but it's like, what does that mean? And so I really love leading groups and getting into what does that mean, and sharing together and going through this practice and exercises and really learning and
Yeah.
unfolding. It's a lot of internal work. So that's one thing that I do, is I do a lot of parenting groups. And so I have, most of them are coming to an end this month. I'll be starting new in 2026 in February. I also do a lot of emotional intelligence for organizations and schools. And so I've
Mm.
done work with other teams. I'm really excited about working with physicians and
Mm.
helping
Yes.
physicians, doctors of any modality, to really understand the power of their words when they're working with.
That gives me chills.
I really want
That
them to
is such a
understand.
need. Oh, there's such a need for
Yes.
that.
And it really but again, like even our field, like I want other therapists. One of my desires in 2026 is to have more groups for therapists that are understanding, anytime we're giving any support through the word of should, we're micro dosing on shame and blame. We
Yeah.
have to raise our consciousness with this word if we're really wanting to connect to the possibility with someone.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting when you read books or see posts, it's used to get people's attention to market, but it's
Yeah.
tapping into fear. And we have to kind of call ourselves into a different way of support. I don't want to have
Wow.
someone feel fear to then listen to me.
Yeah.
I want,
It's a movement really to move away from should.
and shame. And
Yeah.
it sells sometimes more than sex,
Yeah.
but it's not really allowing the central nervous system to be expansive.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so I really want to call all of us into being aware in our marketing, in our words, in our connection with ourselves, with our partners, our children, the people that we love, to what the replacement is giving first of all, you want to ask if someone's making a question, like, what should I do? There's no shoulds. What feels right for you? What is this coming up for you? Right. So we want to discover. So, and what works for you, what's available for you, what can you do? Choice is so powerful.
Yeah.
Choice is so powerful. Understanding
Wow.
that this is some things that we can do, and no matter what, there's going to be grief in it. So it's not about what you should do to bypass disappointment or uncertainty. We have to sit with that.
Yeah. Wow. Are your workshops all in person or do you offer anything virtually?
Well, great. So my right now the parenting groups are virtual.
Oh, amazing. So can anybody listening join
Yeah,
a group?
absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Amazing.
So I
So
typically,
we'll share the link to that to make sure that anybody who's listening can find out how to participate.
yep. I typically try to do them in ages. So I'll have like parentings for preschoolers, elementary school. I had a couple high school groups, which I was so great. And then I have, you know,
Sign me up, by the way.
and then I have like the babies, right?
Yeah.
Because I
Okay.
love working with the
Yeah.
babies. I'm on them. Um, but a lot of the workshops that I do are in person, like with different agencies and companies.
Right. Organizations.
Yeah.
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 Wonderful. So, aside from sharing the link below, can we follow you on Instagram? Or
Have
can you?
Instagram. It's becoming epic. And so it's there. So I would love engagement and to follow along. I have a website, and that's where you can sign up and kind of get more information about some of the groups or different things that I offer. And I also have a private practice where I have clinicians that work under me. It's called Epic Family Therapy. And
Mm,
so I'm not working directly as much with individual kids or children anymore, but I have a team of 6 associates that work with me. And so we have a wonderful team, and I'm really proud
ah,
of them and the work that they're doing as well.
that's amazing. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jenna. I just have chills, everything that we were able to touch on today. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with before we go?
Great question. I think repeat the mantra that I am emotionally powerful, internally connected, one thing, and
Mm,
also begin to practice using your own name and saying, I love you to yourself
mm,
with yourself. So
I
I,
love that.
yeah, I really,
Using your own name and
call
saying,
yourself.
I love you in third person.
Yes. So Jenna, I love you. I love you, Jenna.
Brooke, I
Um,
love you. I love you,
yeah,
Brooke. I'm going to do that right now while we have a minute.
that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. It's a very, it can bring up a lot for a lot of people. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
powerful practice, one that we don't
Mhm.
really know and have been not, we tell everybody else we love them.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Learn how to calm an overactive brain and tap into your zone of genius. The Calm Edge One-on-One is a personalized hypno coaching experience that I designed to teach you how to rewire your thought patterns and reframe your emotional responses so you can fully leverage your strengths and unlock the influential leader within you. To learn more, click the link below and schedule a complimentary 30-minute consultation call, and let's chat.